The Galactic Council chamber was a place of grand debates and endless speeches. Its great dome was lined with banners of dozens of civilizations, each embroidered with their unique symbols. Every race had its seat, from the towering Aaron to the small but sharp-minded Karen. The air always carried a faint hum from the translation systems, turning dozens of alien languages into a clear voice for all to hear. Among these voices, there was one that rarely spoke. The human representative, Thomas Hale, sat quietly at his assigned place. He was neither the tallest nor the smallest in the chamber. He wore the simple dark suit of Earth's diplomatic corps, his expression calm, his hands folded neatly on the desk before him. Many council members had grown used to his silence over the years. When Thomas did speak, it was only to confirm attendance or cast a vote. He did not argue. He did not raise his voice, and he did not join the political storms that often swept across the chamber. Other species began to think of him as harmless, a man of a young race that had not yet learned the ways of true galactic power. That day, the council was in session over a trade proposal that had been discussed for weeks. The banners of the various factions hung heavy above the delegates as the speaker, a tall, four-eyed Vale, addressed the assembly. This motion will secure better distribution of resources among all member states, the speaker declared. In light of human overproduction of certain minerals and their strategic positioning in the Orion Spur, we propose a redistribution system. This will ensure that their surplus benefits all, rather than being hoarded in their colonies. The chamber buzzed with approval from many seats. The words were polite, but their meaning was clear. Earth's colonies would be forced to give up resources at the council's set price, leaving them little choice in their own trade. Several representatives spoke in favor. The errant delegate, tall and draped in silver robes, said in a deep voice, "It is not right for one member to grow wealthy while others suffer shortages." The Karen ambassador, her long fingers tapping her desk, added, "It is for the good of the whole. Unity requires sacrifice." Thomas listened without expression. When his turn came, the speaker's voice addressed him, "Representative Hale, will you respond?" Thomas rose slowly from his seat. His voice was steady and calm. "Earth will review the details of this proposal. At present, I have no further comment." Then he sat down again. A few chuckles spread quietly through the chamber. Some council members exchanged knowing glances. The humans, they thought, would do as they were told. They always did. The vote was called. One by one, lights on the great display board lit up in green for approval. A few yellow lights marked abstentions. The final tally was clear. The motion passed. Thomas pressed his voting key, recording an abstention, and said nothing more. When the session ended, delegates gathered in small groups to discuss the outcome. The human silence was barely noticed. For the larger powers, the matter was closed. Soon, Earth's resources would begin flowing into the Council's redistribution network. Thomas left the chamber and walked through the marble-like corridors of the Council building. The walls were lined with murals depicting centuries of galactic cooperation. Wars ended, treaties signed, worlds rebuilt. Yet, as he passed them, his eyes were thoughtful. Far above, in orbit around the Council capital, Earth's diplomatic shuttle waited for him. Inside, his aide, Daniel, was already reading the official summary of the vote. They passed it. Daniel said as Thomas entered. His voice was low, tinged with frustration. "Unanimous among the major blocks. We didn't have the numbers to stop it." Thomas took his seat by the small window, watching the spires of the city fall away as the shuttle lifted. It was expected. He said quietly, "They'll strip the colonies bare." Daniel continued, "First the minerals, then the shipping lanes. They're not just after trade. They're setting the stage to control everything." Thomas turned his gaze from the window to his aide. "Do you think I don't know that?" His voice was still calm, but there was a weight behind it. Daniel hesitated, then nodded. "You do know? You've always known. But you never challenged them." Thomas folded his hands. "Not yet." The shuttle broke through the upper atmosphere, stars spilling across the dark beyond. For a long moment, neither man spoke. The hum of the engines filled the silence. When they reached the human embassy station in orbit, Thomas went straight to the secure conference room. Waiting inside were the senior staff of the Terran diplomatic corps. Their faces were tense. It passed, Thomas confirmed. The redistribution begins next cycle. There were murmurs of anger round the table. One of the advisors, a woman named Karen, leaned forward. "We can appeal. We can ask for a special review." "No," Thomas said. "We won't appeal." The room went quiet. "Every appeal will fail," he continued. "The council has already decided what we are in their eyes, a quiet race with no real power. They believe they can push us without limit. Let them believe it." A few exchanged uneasy glances. "You mean to let them take what they want?" Karen asked. Thomas met her gaze. "For now, we will give them silence. And while they think we are silent, we will prepare." That word, prepare, settled over the room like a hidden spark. No one asked for details, but they all understood the meaning. There were still shipyards working on distant moons, still research stations tucked into asteroid belts, still plans that had been in motion long before this day. Thomas rose from his chair. "Send word to the assembly on Earth. Tell them nothing changes yet, but the moment I say the word, every colony must be ready." As the meeting broke up, Thomas returned to his quarters. Alone, he stood before the wide viewport, looking out at the black sea of space. Ships moved silently past, their running lights glinting like fireflies. Somewhere out there, beyond the council's watch, humanity's strength was growing. "They think we are quiet," he thought. "They think we will stay that way." He allowed himself a faint smile. For now. Weeks passed since the council had passed the Redistribution Act. At first, the changes seemed small. A few shipments from the colonies were redirected. A few trade agreements were written. The official messages from the council claimed it was all for the greater good. But in the colonies, people felt the pressure. Cargo freighters were stopped for inspection more often. Mining stations were ordered to send their best output to council depots, leaving local markets with shortages. The prices of simple goods began to rise. In the Mars Orbital Command, young officer Maria Ward watched the reports come in. She sat at her station in the operations center, the large room filled with the soft beeping of sensors and the quiet murmur of voices. Lines of data scrolled down her display, shipping logs, cargo reports, and fleet movements. Something did not feel right. For months, there had been a slow but steady increase in the number of civilian freighters requesting clearance for deep space routes far from the main trade lanes. They always gave a reason: testing new drives, avoiding pirate zones, exploring asteroid fields. But Maria noticed a pattern. Many of them were registered to colonies with strong shipbuilding industries. During her break, she joined her friend Jacob in the mess hall. The large window looked out over the red surface of Mars, the sun a pale circle beyond the thin atmosphere. "You ever notice how many ships are heading toward the empty sectors?" she asked quietly. Jacob shrugged, taking a sip from his mug. "Maybe they're looking for better mining spots. Resources are tight now with the council's new rules." Maria shook her head. "It's too many, and they're going in groups sometimes, like convoys. But no one's reporting what they bring back." Jacob smirked. "Maybe they're not bringing anything back." Maria gave him a look. "Exactly." Across the solar system, in the quiet offices of the Earth Assembly, leaders reviewed similar reports. The Redistribution Act had triggered more than shortages. It had woken old fears of dependency, of being controlled by outside powers. The Assembly's closed meetings were quiet but intense. The message from Thomas Hale, sent directly from the council capital, was simple: do not resist openly. Begin preparations. This message spread through the leadership of every human colony and station. Governors and commanders began quietly redirecting funds toward military research, expanding shipyards, and recruiting more personnel for security forces in the asteroid belt. Deep inside the mined-out shell of a massive rock, engineers worked around the clock on a project known only by its code name, Iron Shield. The station's exterior looked abandoned, but inside, huge construction bays were filled with the skeletons of warships. At the Neptune shipyards, Workers installed railgun turrets on what were officially labeled as long-range survey vessels. In the Luna Defense Complex, technicians tested new stealth drones capable of jamming enemy sensors. The preparations were not done in open defiance, on paper. Every project could be explained as a defensive measure, a civilian research program, or a trade vessel improvement. But the true purpose was known to those in command. Back on Mars, Maria was given new duties. She was transferred from traffic control to fleet coordination, a position that gave her access to classified schedules. On her first day in the new role, she noticed something that confirmed her suspicions. Several maintenance runs were planned to remote coordinates far outside human territory. Each run involved heavy freighters escorted by small but fast corvettes. The return trips were always marked as data collection only, meaning no cargo was listed. Her commanding officer, Captain Reeve, caught her frowning at the data. "Something on your mind, Lieutenant?" Maria hesitated. "Sir, I've noticed a lot of unusual deep space trips lately. The routes are not standard." Reeve studied her for a moment, then gave a small nod. "You have a sharp eye. That's good, but you need to remember something. Not all orders are meant to be questioned. Some are simply followed." She nodded slowly. "Understood, sir." But as she returned to her console, she could not shake the feeling that something large was moving beneath the surface of everyday operations. On Earth, in a quiet meeting room hidden below the assembly hall, Thomas Hale spoke to a small group of senior officials via secure holographic link. "The Council believes we are compliant," he said. "They see no threat from us. That gives us time, but not much. Their pressure will increase. We must be ready before they decide to push harder." One of the colony governors asked, "Do we have a timeline?" Thomas shook his head. "No exact date, but their actions are becoming bolder. The inspections are just the start. They will move to control our shipping lanes next. When that happens, the choice will be made for us." Double quotes. The room fell silent. Every person there understood what he meant. The Council might see humanity as weak, but they were unknowingly building the case for the very conflict they thought impossible. In the outer colonies, life became a careful balance between meeting the Council's demands and quietly resisting them. Local leaders taught their people to conserve resources, to produce in secret, and to keep their plans hidden from visiting inspectors. Children learned in school about the long history of human endurance, how their ancestors had survived on the edges of barren worlds, rebuilt after disasters, and adapted to every challenge. These stories became more than history lessons. They were quiet reminders of what might come. In space, the movement of ships grew more organized. What had started as scattered independent convoys began to take shape into coordinated fleets, each assigned to specific sectors. Communications officers used coded phrases and standard reports to hide operational details. From Council monitors, Maria, now fully aware that she was working inside something far larger than routine fleet logistics, began to feel both pride and unease. Pride that humanity was not sitting idle under the Council's weight. Unease because she knew how quickly such hidden preparations could turn into open war. One evening, she received a private message marked with the seal of the Terran Defense Coordination Office, a department she had never interacted with before. It contained a single line: "Your observation skills have been noted. Continue your duties and maintain silence." The meaning was clear. She had been seen, and now she was part of whatever was unfolding. While the Council continued to tighten its grip, reports from human space gave the illusion of compliance. Production quotas were met, resources were delivered, and official communications remained polite. The Council's analysts saw nothing alarming. But beneath the surface, in hidden shipyards and encrypted channels, a quiet transformation was underway every day. The steel grew stronger, the ships more numerous, and the crews more prepared. And every day, humanity's silence grew heavier, waiting for the moment it would break. The Daven sector was far from the bright heart of Council space. It was a lonely stretch of stars where few travelers passed, unless they had business with the small mining colonies. Scattered among the asteroid belts, for years, it had been peaceful. a place where freighters moved quietly and pirates were rare. That peace ended on a cold morning in Standard Time when the human freighter Silver Dawn sent out a distress call. The call was brief and filled with static, but the message was clear. They were being intercepted. A patrol from the Torval Alliance, a member of the Galactic Council, had moved in on the freighter, demanding to board. Officially, the Torval claimed they were looking for smugglers. Unofficially, it was another way to remind human traders who controlled the lanes. Inside the Silver Dawn, Captain Ross stood at the main console, his jaw set. Transmit our status and refusal. This ship is under Terran registry. They have no right to board. The communications officer nodded, sending the message. They're ignoring us. Captain, they're powering docking clamps. Ross narrowed his eyes. All engines, reverse thrust. Keep them off us. The small crew worked quickly, but the patrol ship was larger and faster. Within minutes, its clamps were locked on the freighters. Hull! A harsh metallic sound echoed through the Silver Dawn as the boarding tunnel connected. The Torval soldiers came through in heavy suits, their weapons drawn. They moved with practiced precision, scanning the crew with handheld devices. This vessel is suspected of illegal cargo transport, their leader said. We will search it fully. Ross stood his ground. You have no jurisdiction here. This sector is neutral. The Torval commander's voice was cold. Neutral is what the council says it is. Stand aside. The search turned aggressive. Containers were opened, crates pried apart. The soldiers treated the crew roughly, shoving them aside. No contraband was found, but the Torval officers did not seem to care. The confrontation ended only when the Torval commander ordered the crew detained. They placed restraints on everyone except one, a young technician named Leo, who had been repairing an external sensor during the boarding. He watched helplessly from the maintenance hatch as the Silver Dawn was taken under tow. Hours later, in a small detention cell aboard the Torval ship, Captain Ross spoke through the bars to one of his crew. If they think this will scare us, they're wrong. Someone will hear about this. The Torval guards only laughed. Who will listen to you? Your council member barely speaks. The Silver Dawn never made it to the station it was bound for. The Torval patrol claimed the ship suffered a sudden core breach during inspection. All hands were reported lost. Only Leo, left behind in the maintenance pod, survived to tell the story. When he was recovered by a passing human scout ship, his face was pale, his hands shaking. He told the officers what he had seen, the unnecessary aggression, the false accusations, the destruction of the freighter. His words were recorded, verified, and transmitted straight to Earth. In the council chamber, the incident was presented. 2 weeks later, the Torval representative dismissed it as a tragic accident. Other members nodded politely, agreeing there was no proof of wrongdoing. Thomas Hale sat in silence as the discussion went in circles. Delegates spoke of moving on, of maintaining unity, of avoiding overreaction. When the speaker asked if the human delegation had a statement, Thomas rose slowly. His voice was calm, but his eyes were fixed and steady. The Terran colonies have heard your explanations. We have considered your words carefully. He paused, letting the silence stretch. The chamber was still. It is time now, he said, for words. No anger in his tone, no raised voice, but something in the way he spoke them made even the most confident council members shift in their seats. He sat down again without further comment. Far from the council capital, the message spread through secure channels to every human colony and fleet. 3 words from the assembly followed: execute Phase 1. On Mars. Maria Ward read the order from her console in the operations center. Her heart beat faster. She had seen the preparations for months, the quiet build-up, the hidden movements. Now the order meant the silence was over. Shipyards that had been under maintenance came alive with activity. Massive warships slid from their construction bays, their dark hulls gleaming under floodlights. On asteroid stations, drone swarms were activated and loaded into carriers. Crews who had been training in secret were called to their ships. In the belt, the Iron Shield project rolled its first completed vessel into space, a heavy cruiser, with armor plating thicker than anything the Council had seen. Its railguns were mounted in rotating turrets, its missile base hidden behind armored doors. On Earth, the assembly met in secure session. The president stood before the gathered officials. The council believes our voice is small. They have mistaken patience for weakness. That ends today. We will not fire first, but we will not stand aside again. From this moment, every act of aggression will be answered. In the deep black beyond Neptune, a small fleet formed in tight formation. Maria was aboard one of the lead cruisers, the Resolute. As she looked out at the other ships, she realized the scale of what humanity had built in secret. There were destroyers, frigates, missile carriers, and support ships. All of them bore the same emblem on their hull, the Terran Defense Pact, a symbol of unity among every human world. The comms channel opened, and the voice of Admiral Hayes filled the bridge. This is not yet war, but it is the end of being silent. The council will hear us now, and they will understand. Maria gripped the railing as the fleet's engines flared to life. The quiet days were gone. The Resolute turned toward the border sectors, carrying with it the weight of every insult, every pressure, every act the council had forced upon them. And somewhere far away, in the grand chamber of the council, Thomas Hale sat calmly at his desk, knowing the spark had been lit. The fire was coming. The council chambers were bright with the glow of 1,000 lights. Delegates filled their seats, some speaking in low voices, others reviewing datapads filled with trade reports and fleet assignments. It was an ordinary session, at least. That was what they believed. At the center, Thomas Hale sat in his usual place, calm and silent. His face revealed nothing, but his eyes were sharp. He had received word before arriving. Phase 1 had been completed across human space. Shipyards were active, fleets were assembled, supply lines were secure. The Speaker of the Council began with a confident tone. The matter of the Daven sector has been reviewed. No evidence has been found of unlawful actions by the Torval Patrol. We will now move forward to the issue of shipping lane control in the Proxima region. Several representatives voiced support. A Karen diplomat spoke next, her voice smooth but firm. To maintain fair trade, it is necessary for the Council to take direct oversight of human trade routes in this region. The Aaron delegate, tall and imposing, added, "This will prevent further misunderstandings and ensure compliance with Council regulations." Round the chamber, nods and murmurs of agreement spread. Most delegates expected the humans to remain silent again. Thomas stood. The movement alone was enough to draw a few curious glances. He almost never spoke unless required. When the speaker acknowledged him, his voice carried clearly through the chamber. For many years, humanity has been a quiet member of this council. We listened, we watched, we allowed others to believe that silence meant weakness. Some delegates shifted in their seats. His tone was calm, but there was an edge to it now. That silence ends today. The translation systems hummed as his words spread in dozens of languages. The hall grew still. Thomas placed a datapad on his desk and pressed a key. The chamber's main display screens flickered, showing images not on the official agenda. First came the sight of massive shipyards in orbit around Luna and Mars, filled with vessels under construction. Then the view shifted to deep space docks, hidden in asteroid fields, launching sleek warships into the void. Heavy cruisers, destroyers, and carriers moved in perfect formation, their hulls marked with the emblem of the Terran Defense Pact. Gasps rippled through the chamber. The images continued, drone swarms rising from hidden bases, railgun batteries mounted on defense platforms, stealth ships vanishing into cloaking fields. All of it was recorded in real time, not propaganda. This, Thomas said evenly, is the result of years of preparation. We have been patient while this council passed laws that stripped our colonies of resources, while our ships were harassed, and our people treated as subjects instead of allies. The veiled speaker tried to interrupt. Representative Hale, this display is— Thomas raised his hand slightly. You will let me finish. It was not a request. Round the chamber, many delegates were silent now, watching the screens as they cycled through more images, fleets gathering at jump points, carriers loaded with fighters, orbital stations armed with weapons the Council's intelligence had never cataloged. You have mistaken patience for fear, Thomas continued. You believe the Terran worlds would bow forever. That belief ends here, from this day forward. Any action taken against human ships or colonies will be met with force. We will defend our people, our trade, and our borders. The Karen diplomat leaned forward, her tone sharp. You are threatening the council. Thomas met her gaze without flinching. I am stating the truth. We will not be the ones to fire first, but if you cross our lines, you will not like what follows. Far away, in human space, the mass was already coming off. In the Proxima sector, civilian cargo ships moved openly with military escorts. Destroyers took up positions at the edges of trade routes. Patrol craft began scanning every vessel entering. Human-controlled zones, ignoring council protests. On Mars, Maria Ward stood on the command deck of the Resolute as orders came in. The fleet was to take up defensive positions near the border. But the subtext was clear. They were to be ready for anything. The crew worked with silent efficiency. No one questioned the orders. They had all heard about the Silver Dawn, and many had family in colonies that had felt the council's pressure. Maria walked the length of the deck, stopping beside the sensor officer. Any sign of movement from the council patrols? Nothing. Yet, he replied. But their comm traffic has increased. She nodded. Keep watching. Back at the council chamber, the reaction to Thomas's words was divided. Some members looked shaken, others angry, and a few suspiciously quiet. The Torval representative spoke in a low, threatening tone. If humanity arms itself beyond what the council permits, it will be treated as a hostile power. Thomas's answer was simple. Then you should decide quickly if you wish to call us hostile. We will not hide what we have built, and we will not disarm. The veiled speaker tried to restore order, calling for a recess, but the chamber was already in chaos. Delegates spoke over one another, some demanding sanctions, others warning against provoking the humans further. Thomas gathered his datapad and walked out without another word. He had said what needed to be said. Outside, in the long marble corridor, a young aide approached him. Sir, did you mean to reveal everything? Thomas kept walking. That was not everything. That was enough. He boarded the diplomatic shuttle without looking back. The council had seen a glimpse of the truth, and that was all he needed for now. In the days that followed, news of the display spread far beyond the chamber walls. Civilian channels showed footage of the Terran fleet to astonished audiences across the galaxy. Traders and captains began speaking more cautiously when dealing with human vessels. The Council's intelligence branches scrambled to verify what they had seen, but most of their agents in human space found their access suddenly restricted. Shipyards and stations were guarded around the clock, and communication routes were encrypted with codes they could not break. In the Proxima region, Maria received new orders. The Resolute and 3 other ships would patrol near a disputed jump point where Council forces had been sighted. The mission was defensive, but everyone aboard understood what that meant. The mass was gone, and the first clash could come at any moment. On the bridge, as the Resolute accelerated toward the border, Maria looked at the star map on the main display. Red markers showed known Council patrols. Blue markers showed Terran positions. The space between them was small and shrinking. She felt the weight of it, the years of silence, the quiet preparations, the careful steps that had led here. The Council thought they were still in control. They had no idea how quickly control could slip away. Somewhere beyond the stars, Thomas Hale was already preparing his next move. The time for quiet diplomacy was over. Humanity had spoken, and their voice was made of fire and steel. The border of the Proxima sector was quiet in the way deep space could be, cold, dark, and empty to the untrained eye. But Maria Ward knew better. The Resolute moved at a steady pace, her engines a soft hum beneath the deck. Round them, the rest of the Terran battle group kept perfect formation. On the main display, a line of red markers showed incoming ships, Council transponders, contact range in 6 minutes. The sensor officer reported. Maria glanced toward the commanding officer, Admiral Hayes, standing at the center of the bridge. His face was calm, but his hands rested firmly on the railing. They're not turning back, Maria said. They won't, Hayes replied. They think we'll move aside. Today we show them we won't. The fleet consisted of the Resolute, two heavy cruisers, 4 destroyers, and a carrier loaded with fighter craft. Every ship was ready. Every crew knew the orders: do not fire first, but hold the line. The Council fleet came into visual range. It was larger: 3 battlecruisers, 6 frigates, and a swarm of escort corvettes. Their lead ship sent a transmission. "This is Council Patrol Command." The voice said through the comm system, "You are ordered to stand down and prepare for inspection. These trade lanes are under Council oversight." Admiral Hayes' reply was calm but unyielding. "Negative, Council Command. This is Terran-controlled space. You will reverse course immediately." Silence followed for a moment. Then the Council voice returned, colder now. "If you do not comply, we will enforce the order." Hayes glanced toward the communications officer. "Send them our coordinates and remind them they are in our territory." The message was sent. No answer came back. Instead, the Council ships began to accelerate. "They're moving into attack formation," the tactical officer reported. Hayes gave a single nod. "All ships, shields to full. Weapons live. Do not fire until fired upon." Maria's hands tightened on the console. She could feel the tension spread through the crew like a current on the display. The enemy fleet drew closer. Then it happened. A single bright flash from one of the Council battlecruisers. A plasma bolt streaked across the gap, slamming into the shields of a Terran destroyer. The impact flared, but the shields held. "They fired," the tactical officer confirmed. Hayes' voice was steady. "Return fire." The Resolute's forward railguns roared to life. Slugs of dense metal tore across the void, striking the lead Council ship. The impact shook its shields, sparks bursting from the hit. The cruisers joined in, missiles launching in coordinated salvos from the carrier. Squadrons of Terran fighters swarmed out, engines flaring bright. They split into attack wings, diving through enemy formations to target vulnerable escort ships. The Council fleet answered with heavy plasma fire. Green bolts lit the darkness, smashing into Terran shields. One destroyer took a direct hit to its engines and began to drift, but its weapons still fired. Maria kept her focus on the tactical display, calling out positions and target updates. "Enemy frigate on our port side, shields at 40%, redirect fire." The Resolute pivoted, its side batteries spitting fire into the frigate. The enemy ship tried to break away, but a missile from the cruiser ironclad tore through its hull. The explosion flared bright, then faded into cold debris. The battle was a storm of light and motion. Terran drone swarms, small, fast, and deadly, slipped past enemy defenses to plant charges on larger ships. Railgun fire shattered corvette hulls. The Council battlecruisers tried to use their size and armor to push through, but Terran formations moved with precision, opening and closing gaps to trap their opponents. Council cruiser breaking through at bearing 175, Maria called, "Intercept." Hayes ordered. The Resolute and the Defiant surged forward side by side. Their guns pounded the cruiser's shields until they failed. The next volley ripped deep into its hull, tearing it open from bow to stern. On the enemy bridge, panic was clear. Their formation was breaking. Within minutes, the tide turned. 2 Council frigates were destroyed, 3 corvettes crippled, and 1 battlecruiser heavily damaged. The rest began to retreat, their remaining escorts moving to cover them. "Do we pursue?" the tactical officer asked. Hayes shook his head. "Negative. We hold position. Let them carry the story home." Maria understood. Chasing them would make this look like an invasion. Letting them limp back meant the Council would know exactly what had happened and how badly they had underestimated Terran strength. When the last enemy ship jumped out of the sector, the silence on the bridge was broken only by the faint hum of systems. Then, slowly, the sound of relieved voices filled the air. "Damage report," Hayes said. 1 destroyer heavily damaged, minor hull scoring onto cruisers. "No losses." The engineering officer replied. Hayes nodded. "Send the record of the engagement to command, and make sure every colony hears about it. The galaxy needs to know we can fight." Maria leaned back in her chair, her heart still pounding. She had been in skirmishes before, But nothing like this. This was open battle against the Council, and they had won. Hours later, in the Council chamber, the Torval representative slammed a data tablet onto his desk. "This is an act of war," others argued back, pointing to the recording of the first plasma shot fired by the Council ship. Thomas Hale sat quietly, watching the chaos. When the speaker tried to restore order, Thomas finally spoke no. He said, his voice carrying through the noise, "It was an act of defense. We warned you. You chose to test us. Now you know the cost." Some delegates shouted, others whispered, but no one could deny the truth. The first direct clash had ended with the Council retreating in human space. The victory spread like wildfire. Colonists cheered in mining stations. Shipyards increased. Production and recruitment surged. The message was simple. Humanity had stood its ground and would do so again. On the Resolute, Maria stood at the observation deck, watching the stars drift by. She knew this was only the beginning. The Council would not forget the humiliation. More battles would come. But she also knew something else. They were ready. The silence was gone. And now, the fire had begun to spread. The sky over Orion Station burned in deep streaks of orange and silver. As human fleets arrived in tight formations, ships of all shapes filled the void, their armor reflecting the light of distant suns. Every hull bore the marks of countless journeys and battles. They had not come for trade. They had come to answer the call of their people. Commander Rion stood at the command deck of the flagship Resolute. His gaze was steady, but there was an edge in his tone as he spoke to the crew. "The Council has made their choice. They believe. We will kneel. Today, they will see they are wrong." The Resolute moved forward, its escorts shifting to cover both flanks. Far ahead, the Council's defense grid was coming online. Massive energy turrets rotated slowly, their weapons tracking. The advancing fleet, across the comm channels, human captains reported readiness. Rion gave the order, "Form the wall. No ship breaks line unless ordered. We fight as one." The first wave of enemy fire blazed across space. Bright arcs of plasma and ion bursts slammed into the human shields. The impact shook the decks. But the formations held. Rion's voice cut through the alarms, "Return fire." The void lit up with beams and kinetic slugs. Human railguns fired at impossible speeds, their projectiles slicing through the Council's front guard ships. Heavy missiles streaked across the black, breaking apart defense platforms in clouds of debris. The enemy scrambled to adjust, but human coordination was unlike anything they had faced before. On the station's observation level, counselors watched in disbelief. They had known humanity was strong, but not like this. Every maneuver was precise. Every counterattack came faster than expected. Counselor Marin's voice trembled as he spoke to the others. They were silent for so long. "We thought it meant weakness. We were wrong." Back in the thick of the battle, the enemy attempted to flank the human fleet. Smaller alien ships moved to encircle, hoping to cut through their supply lines. Rion anticipated the move. "Deploy second wing. Do not chase, intercept, and hold them." The second wing of human corvettes surged forward, their smaller frames darting between incoming fire. They weaved through the chaos, targeting engines and weapon systems, crippling the flank attempt. Inside the Council defense fleet, confusion spread. They were fighting a force that refused to give them a single opening, even when outnumbered. In a skirmish, humans fought with an intensity that pushed back against overwhelming odds. As the battle raged, the Resolute took a direct hit to its side armor. Sparks showered across the bridge, and warning lights flashed red. The engineering officer called out, "Armor breach on deck 4. No loss of pressure yet. Rerouting power to forward shields." Rion nodded. "Keep us in the fight." The Council fleet began pulling back, retreating toward the station. They hoped the station's heavy guns would tip the balance. The humans pressed forward, closing the gap. Rion issued the next command, "Bring up the siege batteries." From the lower decks of each battleship, massive cannons slid into position. They fired in unison, unleashing bright, sustained beams of energy. The first salvo tore into the station's outer shield, making it shimmer and ripple. The second salvo cracked it entirely, leaving exposed armor beneath. Human ships focused their fire, striking in coordinated bursts. The soundless violence of space filled the view screens. The station's guns responded, sending massive plasma bolts toward the human fleet. One cruiser, the Iron Star, took a hit that split it in two. Its broken halves drifted apart, burning silently. The crew of the Resolute watched the wreckage, but no one looked away from their stations. They all knew the cost of this battle. In the council chamber, alarms blared. The once calm walls now shook with the impacts of war. Counselors shouted over one another, debating whether to call for a ceasefire or order a full evacuation. But deep down, they all felt the same realization. The humans had crossed a line that would not be UNC or OSSED. Then, in a move that shifted the course of the fight, Rian gave the order to split the fleet into two wings. One wing would maintain pressure on the station. The other would hunt down and disable the remaining enemy warships. This created chaos in the Council's ranks. Without their ships to cover them, the station became an isolated target. Over the comms, a young pilot named Mara reported with steady determination, "Target shield generators destroyed. Path to main core is clear." Rian seized the moment. "All ships, concentrate fire. End this." The combined firepower of the human fleet hit the station in relentless waves. Armor shattered, internal explosions rippled outward, and the once proud Council stronghold began to break apart, even as the station burned. The humans did not celebrate. This was not a victory to them. It was a statement. The battle ended, with the Council forces retreating fully, abandoning the station to its fate. Wreckage drifted slowly, caught in the pull of the nearby planet. Rian stood on the bridge, silent for a long moment. Then he said, "Send the message to all systems. We do not kneel." The crew obeyed. Across the stars, human colonies and allies received the broadcast, the sight of a Council fortress in ruins, and the voice of their commander declaring their resolve. For the first time in generations, humanity was not the quiet observer on the galactic stage. They were a force that could not be ignored. In the far reaches of space, other factions watched the transmission. Some saw danger, some saw opportunity, but all saw the truth. The Council had pushed too hard, and humanity's silence had broken in fire and steel. The ruins of Orion Station still floated in the void, silent and cold. Broken pieces of metal drifted through the black, a reminder of the battle that had ended only days before. But for humanity, there was no time to rest. The Council's retreat had not ended the war. It had only pushed the conflict into its final stage. Commander Rian stood in the strategy room of the Resolute. A large holographic map of the galaxy hovered above the table, marked with red symbols of Council strongholds and blue symbols of human fleets round him. Senior officers studied incoming reports. Mara, the young pilot who had destroyed the station shield generators, was now promoted and stood by his side. Her voice was steady. "Our scouts have confirmed it. The Council fleet is regrouping near the Helion Rift. If they hold that position, they can cut off our colonies in the eastern sectors." Rian's jaw tightened. "Then we take it from them." Helion Rift was a dangerous region of space, a cluster of unstable stars and debris fields. Navigating it required precision and skill. But whoever controlled its main pass could control trade and supply routes across a quarter of the galaxy. The Council knew it, and so did humanity. The journey to Helion was tense. Every crew member understood what was at stake. Across the fleet, engineers worked day and night to repair damaged hulls and restore shield generators. Medics treated the wounded from the last battle, and gunners checked their weapons repeatedly. In the quiet moments, some thought about their homes and the people waiting for them. Others thought only about the fight to come. When the human fleet reached the rift, they found the Council already in position. Dozens of enemy warships formed a wall around the pass, supported by heavy carriers and missile frigates. Rian knew they could not win by brute force alone. They would need speed, coordination, and daring. "Form 3 attack groups," he ordered. "Group 1 will draw their fire. Group 2 will flank from the debris field. Group 3 will punch through the center once the enemy is distracted. We break them here, or we fall back for years." The battle began with sudden violence. Group 1 surged forward, shields flaring under the first storm of enemy fire. Explosions lit the rift, casting strange shadows against the drifting rocks. Group 2 slipped into the debris field, their ships weaving between chunks of broken planets and shattered asteroids. The enemy followed, sending a wing of fast interceptors to flush them out. In the chaos, Group 3, led by the Resolute, pushed toward the center. The Council ships responded with heavy fire, but Rion kept his voice calm over the comms. Hold the line. Every second we last is a step closer to victory. Mara's fighter squadron darted ahead, targeting the engines of enemy destroyers. Each hit slowed the Council formation, opening narrow gaps. Through one of those gaps, the human heavy cruisers charged, firing all weapons. The enemy wall began to crack. Then, a massive shockwave tore through the battlefield. One of the unstable stars in the rift had erupted, sending out a blast of radiation and debris. Both fleets were thrown into disorder. Rion saw the opportunity, pushed forward, used the chaos. The humans surged ahead, ships diving through the confusion. They struck hard at the Council's central command carrier, hammering it with missiles and beam fire. The carrier's shields failed, and its engines went dark. Without its leadership, the Council formation began to falter. But victory was not certain yet. A fresh wave of enemy reinforcements emerged from the far side of the rift. They were larger ships, war dreadnoughts with armor thicker than any human cruiser could pierce easily. Rion made a choice. All ships, concentrate on the dreadnought in the lead. Bring it down, and the rest will hesitate for long minutes. The battle raged without pause. The lead dreadnought endured hit after hit, its armor glowing from the heat of repeated impacts. Finally, under the combined fire of the entire human fleet, it broke apart in a blinding burst. As its wreckage spun away, the remaining Council ships began to retreat. The humans did not chase them far. The rift was dangerous, and victory here meant holding the pass, not pursuing the enemy into unknown hazards. Rion gave the order to pull back and establish defensive positions. Silence fell over the battlefield, broken only by the hum of damaged engines and the faint chatter of relief over comm channels. Crews began rescue operations, pulling survivors from shattered ships on both sides. For all the fury of the fight, humanity's goal had never been destruction for its own sake. It had been survival and freedom. In the days that followed, word of the victory at Helion Rift spread across the galaxy. Colonies once fearful of the Council's power now sent messages of support. Some alien worlds, long under the Council's control, quietly contacted human leaders asking for alliances. On the bridge of the Resolute, Mara looked out at the rift, its dangerous beauty stretching in all directions. "Do you think they'll come back?" she asked. Rion's expression was thoughtful. "The Council has lost too much to stop now. They'll come back. But they'll come differently. They'll study us. They'll try to divide us. We can't let that happen." Mara nodded. "Then we keep fighting." Rion turned back to the crew. "We've shown the galaxy who we are. We are not the silent people in the shadows. We are the voice that answers when pushed, and as long as one of us still stands, humanity will not fall." The crew stood a little straighter. The war was not over, but something had changed. Humanity was no longer defending only its own worlds. It was becoming a force that others would rally to, a protector, an ally, and, when necessary, a storm that would not be stopped. The Helion Rift, once a place of danger and isolation, had become a symbol. Here, humanity had stood against the Council's strongest fleets and endured, and in the quiet after the last battle, with the stars watching in endless silence, they prepared for whatever came next. They had fought together, they had bled together, and now they would rise together.